I've been talking a bit recently about America as a great power rather than a superpower, and the creation of an American sphere of influence, which seems to be a policy priority of the White House right now at the beginning of 2026. And I've made a few notes, and I want to go through them just to get these ideas straight. The ideas about geostrategy that are currently motivating the White House are strongly rooted in the late 19th and early 20th century writings of the American Alfred Thayer Mahan, but especially the British geographer and sometime politician Halford Mackinder. And their ideas of geostrategy seem old-fashioned to theorists now, but their basic ideas are sound. If you want to understand what's important in a strategic situation in the world, it doesn't do you any harm to look at some of the basic concepts. I'll give you an example. Routes, bottlenecks, islands, seas, resources. Not a bad checklist of things to keep an eye on. In some places you have to pay attention to rivers as well, where you get huge rivers like the Volga or the Amazon or the Nile or the Mississippi. And I want to talk a little bit about what that means in the Americas. As the United States is becoming more isolationist, as it's adopting an America First set of policies, it's not just a slogan, it's not just a framework for national security policy and strategy. It's also a basis for action. In the last few days, we've seen the United States putting its recent national security strategy into play, and they're doing it without a lot of detail about where that strategy is coming from. It's clear that the United States does not want to invest a great deal of resource into collective defense with Europe. And it is my assessment that the United States is planning to reduce its footprint in Europe and to concede Europe to being a fringe of Russia's sphere of influence. Russia's sphere of influence, built around Eastern Europe and Western Asia, is what Halford Mackinder used to call the heartland. And Mackinder, Englishman, European, he viewed the Eurasian continent as the world island. And he said that if you control Eastern Europe, you control the heartland of that world island. And if you control the heartland of it, then you control Eurasia, the world island, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Now, if you're going to concede that to Russia, or perhaps to a combination of Russia and China, you've got to look good and hard at what the United States can achieve by way of a sphere of influence in the Americas. So let me talk a little bit about those headings. Routes, sea lines of communication. That is, if you want to ship from the Middle East oil, if you want to ship from China consumer goods, you want to ship to the Americas, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans are your key factors. Good port facilities on the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. But as the polar ice caps are melting, as the North Pole in particular melts, and as the Arctic Ocean becomes more navigable, there is not only a bit of a sea coast there, there is a maritime shipping route. And it could be that in years to come, the shipping routes around the Arctic Ocean become a highway to get comparatively quickly from China to Europe. So from an American point of view, if you want to control choke points, your choke points are the Panama Canal, the Straits of Magellan, which are very difficult to navigate, and that new route around the edge of the Arctic Ocean, around the north of Alaska, northern Canada, and northern Greenland. Islands, Greenland, big island, very significant. Other islands that are significant include Cuba, big island in the Caribbean, and Hawaii, island in the Pacific. So I'll chalk those up there as well. Inland seas, the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf of America, as we're now meant to call it, the Great Lakes, Hudson's Bay, and arguably some of the great rivers, the Rio de la Plata in South America, the Amazon in South America, the Mississippi in North America, and the St. Lawrence River system that includes the Great Lakes. So what does all this mean? It means that if you control these choke points, if you control access to this sphere of influence, then you can be a self-sufficient continental power. Self-sufficient in what? Well, if you have all the oil in Texas and all the oil in Alberta in Canada and all the oil in Venezuela, then you don't care about Russia's oil. You don't care about the Persian Gulf oil. You've got all you need, and you can control the price to some extent by holding back or by pumping without necessarily asking the Gulf monarchs to help you. Canada has got a lot of mineral wealth, as of course has the United States, and so do some countries in South America. Made a note here. Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Peru, along with North America, especially Canada, very mineral rich. So if you've got your own minerals, including rare earths, if you've got your own energy supplies, including oil shale, including other fossil fuels, petroleum obviously, then you can be self-sufficient as a sphere of influence. That means you can't be blockaded into submission by another country's navy. It means you can decide that you don't care about Taiwan. You don't care about the United Kingdom or Western Europe. Maybe you don't care about the Middle East either. There's every indication that the Trump administration is happy with the idea of Russia, for at least Putin's lifetime, having its own sphere of influence, and China having its own sphere of influence. This is a huge change from the former global superpower approach that the United States has taken since the Second World War, but I guess that was then and this is now. This is a callback, if not a throwback, to a late 19th, early 20th century way of thinking, invoking the Monroe Doctrine, the idea that foreign powers should not be permitted to interfere in the Western Hemisphere, and calling it the the Don Roe Doctrine after Donald Trump, whose interpretation of it is a little different. It's not that European powers shouldn't control the Americas, is that European powers shouldn't control the Americas because the United States controls the Americas. And that approach, with a lot of historical support in American history, is clearly motivating the nostalgic American administration, an administration that looks back to an imagined golden age of freedom of action in the Americas, of European origin people dominating the economy of the United States itself, and I suppose dominating the economies of the other states in North and South America. So why is the United States keen to control Venezuela and its oil, and Colombia, and the Panama Canal, and Cuba, and Greenland, and maybe Canada? Why does it need to control rather than have good trading relationships with these countries, with these places? I'd call that a matter of ideology. I'd call that a rejection of the kind of soft power that has made the United States as influential as it has been for the last 100 years. And I'd call it an approach that seeks a pricklier, harder-edged approach to relations with other countries. The law of the jungle, as American policy people are starting to call it. So that's what we're moving towards. The United States has got a congressional election in November. Maybe that will change this course. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as vice president, one way or another, are going to be in control of the White House until January of 2029. And we can't expect all of that to go away just because the economics of it and the operational details of it are not giving the United States what they need, what they hope for, and what the White House expects to gain with this charmingly old-fashioned approach to foreign and security policy. That's what I got today. Thank you for listening.